Patents are rights to forbid innovation. That sounds weird, but in the end, it's a reward for innovation. What has this to do with patent security? Well, the rapid technical development in cybersecurity is basically the target for patent activities of respective developers on the one hand side. And on the other hand side, we, as the patent attorneys, we are also the keepers of the secrets of our clients.
Welcome to TALK.CYBERCNI.fr.
Bienvenue.
Welcome to the 43rd edition of TALK.CYBERCNI, your monthly cybersecurity speaker series, where we try to bring you more knowledge for being more secure in all your working and private environments. Today, already 43rd edition, times are turbulent. The website was attacked. If you looked at it, it was down for almost a week. Nothing large, but WordPress plugin that was apparently attacked. So this was keeping me a bit busy. And therefore, I'm even more happy that the website is up again. And we have a super cool highlight today, because today we have Mohr, a long-time friend of mine. So we know each other for more than 20 years. And so actually more than 25 at least. And so, yeah, I'm super happy having him here today. And the topic is also a super nice topic, because it goes about patents today. It's about hacking innovation, securing innovations in the cyber world. And this is a super important and exciting topic that we did not cover yet in this series. And therefore, I'm also super happy topic-wise having such an expert with us today. So those of you who do not join for the first time know it already. For the others, I explain how you can interact. So we have, again, a Slido. So the ID for the Slido is Talk43, as always. So it's Talk and the number. There you can ask your questions. You can upvote and download questions. And so if you're participating, it's always a good idea to be in the Slido, because then you can interact, you can see what's going on in the discussion. Okay, so that said, I keep you this open, or you will also see it on every slide. So I put you the title again. And so, yeah, as said, today we have Christian, and I will briefly introduce Christian. So Dr. Christian Mohr is a patent attorney. He joined Tergau&Walkenhorst Intellectual Property GmbH as managing equity partner and chief visionary officer in October 2023. Christian is a leading IP manager and strategist with more than 18 years of IP leadership experience. After studying biochemistry, molecular biology, and law in Heidelberg, he took his PhD at the Max von Pettenkofer Institute for Virology at the Gene Center of the LMU in Munich. After his education in a boutique patent law firm in Munich, he became German and European patent attorney. Through his journey, he was able to counsel companies of different sizes and business models, and within different industries, among those drug discovery and generic pharma companies, as well as companies in the medical device and chemical industry, from the large corporate to various startups. He entered Electrolux Group in 2016 and was there until recently, where he became head of patents of the German patent department, as well as leading the global IP team of about 45 people in interims. And he has even more things in his CV, but I let him explain this. And with that said, and without further ado, Christian, I'm super happy having you here, and I hand over to you. Let me just check where I have you in full screen. Speaker full screen here. Perfect. So here you go.
Thank you, Mark. And great that you introduced this way, but I think I start in this round of cybersecurity experts with disclosing a secret, probably. And this is where it all started. And in the end, I mean, I really exactly know the very moment where I was introduced to you, because we did the baccalaureate, the Abitur together in Heidelberg. And this was unbelievably 1998, right? And we met roughly 2 years before, when a common friend of mine introduced me to the secrets of the really good old Kurfürst Friedrich Gymnasium, because this was the school where we both were. And he said, you have to come to the basement. You remember that? Because this is where you find these people which are crawling with the computers in our old library. And there was sitting a gang of people assembled around Mark, yeah, who was playing video games, and already there with things like screwdrivers, etc. Were pimping their devices in order to make them even more further. And I think, Mark, this is something which we definitely share since more than 25 years, the passion for innovation, the passion of modern technologies, and also to explore new grounds. And this is then where it all started, actually, our friendship. And now 25 years later, I'm really, really very thankful for this invitation to contribute also to your series here. I'm Christian, as Mark already said, and I'm also in a company which we have gave a brand, TWIP, very, very competitive brand in the end. We try to torchbear innovation, protection, patents, and I will not share PowerPoints or so. I really would love that you engage with us over the chat also, so that I can see your questions. And Mark, I'm not sure if it's the right chat which I'm seeing. So if there is coming up a question, please just interrupt me. We are having a lively discussion here. And nevertheless, I think I have a certain agenda, because I would like to talk with you about patents. Of course, this is my profession. And then, however, on the other hand side, probably also the struggles or opportunities, what's going on with regard to cybersecurity in relation to patents. But let me start on the very beginning. And honestly, it's not a dumb question if you say, hey, what is a patent? I mean, Mark said in his introduction, I think, the word patent 3, 4, 5 times. And whenever I start also to counsel clients, I secure that we are on eye level if it comes to such very fundamental knowledge. What is a patent? And sometimes you can get really weird answers in asking this simple question. And my next question is then, why do you come to a patent attorney without knowing what is a patent? Ha! It's of course a trial to come into a good discussion on eye level, and also it's fine to ask the right question. There is no dumb question in all of this, and a patent in the end is something which is not easy to answer if you ask it that way. So what is a patent? And there is a very simple legal definition what a patent actually means. It's in the end a right. It's a right. It's a documented right which you have as a patent owner to do something, to enforce it. And already there lay a lot of pitfalls about what means that enforcing a right. Let's come to that a bit later. If we talk about patents and we ask why should you patent something, or what you actually can patent in the end, there are also a lot of blur and misbeliefs around, and I would like to give you a bit of clarity into that. So coming first from the legal definition about what a patent is, it's a documented right, and it's not a positive right. And this is one misbelief which in the very first 2 minutes here I would like to disclose with you. Many people believe that if you have patented something, you are automatically allowed to use your invention. That's wrong. A patent is a right to forbid others to use it, to market it, to produce something, etc. pp. And all of this goes back, I think, more than 5,000 years in the meanwhile, where we find in history and in historic science the first traces of a patent intellectual property system. And this is a very nice story which I would like to share with you, which, however, also reveals a fundamental of what a patent actually is and how to deal with it. The story goes like this. There was a Greek colony, which is called Sybaris, and the Greek colony owners, the rulers, they decided that whenever there comes a cook into the colony, and brings a new recipe with him, that the colony allows this cook to cook his new recipe for 1 year exclusively. So he could forbid all others to cook the same recipe for 1 year within the colony of Sybaris. He was the one exclusively being allowed. This is a little different. And the reason why they did that was that you enrich the society. You bring a new recipe, you enrich us in the colony, and therefore you are allowed to own this exclusive right. And the funny thing is that the fundamentals of this little story never changed. And this is something which I would like to tell you. A patent comes with a price. A patent comes with the price that you disclose what you actually have invented. You enrich the society, and this is the incentive system which the states actually want to achieve with having patents as strong rights. In order to enrich the society with new knowledge, they grant you this right if you have contributed to the knowledge and if you are allowed to have a patent. We will come also to this a bit later. You get the reward of being allowed to forbid others. This is a fundamental deal which the society makes with you as the inventor and patent owner. And this deal very often comes to issues, because if you think about yourself, and many of you I know from Mohr are scientists, the price is that you disclose everything. And some of my clients come, shouldn't we, and this is a secret, etc. And there comes a very interesting debate. What should you really disclose? Because everybody will know. And what should you keep as a trade secret, as a know-how, protected from everything by not patenting it, by keeping it a secret? There is one famous story, of course, for example, the recipe of Coca-Cola, is believed to be one of the most protected secrets in the world. Nobody knows that it's not patented. So it's also a possibility to work with know-how protection, to work with secret protection. And still, there are very good reasons to have a patent, namely, that you can enforce it. Going back to the story of the Greek colony, however, there are two further fundamentals which I want to share with you as well. It's the territory principle. You can have a patent in the jurisdiction in the country where you apply and pay for it. The French state cannot allow or hinder somebody to practice your invention by a French patent in, for example, India. You need an Indian patent for that. You must go to another colony and apply for the same patent there. However, and we will go into that later as well, quickly, shortly, there are possibilities, particularly nowadays, a unified patent in Europe, where we all jointly agreed we should have one patent. Finally, after a debate of decades, we have one patent which equally counts for all the countries which have taken part in this deal. Territory principle. And then, of course, and this is then something which is also very relevant in the area of cybersecurity patents, it's the timely bound manner of a patent. So there is a lifespan of a patent, and the time where you can enforce it, where the patent is really existing as a right, is limited. Do you know how long? It's 20 years from the date of application. And if you talk to me, I studied biology. In the early times, I counseled pharma companies. This sounds like ages. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in a talk with cybersecurity people. 20 years? I mean, go on, are you crazy? For pharma, this is nothing, because the development cycle of a new drug sometimes is not even enough to get the return of invest, which they do over the many years they develop a new drug. For cybersecurity people, it's infinite time. And this makes it also very interesting and challenging how you apply patents in the cybersecurity field in the end, because the timely constraints which you have, this is something which is very intriguing as well. Particularly because patenting is not very cheap. Also, this has to be thought through. If you enter the game and if you are a single patent holder, the question really often is, if a client approaches me, how can we afford that? And unfortunately, the incentive systems from the state ends very often with granting this right, but you have to pay for it. However, there are some fundings also from the state or other sources which support you in getting a patent. But very often the people, the inventors are left alone with this. So also there, I can say, and I'm very frank with you, there is a certain misbalance in the system, because you will see patent owners, and we will look into some numbers. I will share some numbers with you. Yeah, if you look at patent portfolios of big players, IBM, for example, then they have thousands of patents. Yeah, when I was still in Electrolux, we had around 7,000 inventions basically covered. Yeah, worldwide. If then a single inventor comes to me and say, hey, I have a good idea, can we apply for a patent? And already there, the question is, what is the patent actually worth, right? Because this is then a question where, well, I would call me really a professional. Yeah. How do we value and evaluate what all of this is worth? So why should you actually patent? Why should I protect? Yeah, and particularly if we talk to people like you who are cybersecurity specialists, who are interested in software patenting, many of you talk about open source, and the idea to share ideas is much more prominent to hinder others compared to hinder others to practice my ideas. Yeah, so the goodwill to say, I want to share my ideas, I want you to use it, on the one hand side, competes a bit with the side where you say, well, I want my idea protected. I want to profit from it. I want to market it. And the interesting thing is where all of this collides, and what is it in for. And if you look now in some figures, for example, cybersecurity booms. Yeah. And the onset is found, I mean, we can make searches. You see always when a patent is filed, usually 18 months after its filing date, it's public. Here the deal, yeah, the Greek colony, think about the deal, comes into real. You don't know whether you get the right in the end, but the price is you publish 18 months after filing. So we can look at that. And there are searchers, there are search bureaus and offices who are professionals in searching and revealing this data for us. And I'm using them very much in patent strategy development. And if you look at your competitor, how much is he filing, in which year, in which area? And I would like to give you some insights here. So all of this starts around 2010, 2011. There you see the onset of patents rising with a few per year. And it goes really like an exponential curve up over the 2015, 16, 17. And if you look at data of 2019, 20, yeah, please think 2025 minus 1.5 years, this is what we see. We are today at more than 500, 700 patents per year, which are solely filed, and which are somehow connected to the terms cyberspace security or cybersecurity. So I've done this analysis quickly for you, and then you see really, boom, the curve is going up without stop. So obviously, people invest in getting rights to forbid you something related to cybersecurity. This is what we can learn from this data, basically. Yeah. So there is at least a use, yeah, in order to think about, why should I invent? Yeah, to make the world better, to protect our data, to protect our computers, to protect our services and communication. So how do I make money out of it? If you look a bit at the country of distribution, you can also learn a bit where the hotspots are. And I think this is not so much interesting, but I want to just tell you, yeah. I mean, in USA is currently the leading country of patent filings related to cybersecurity, followed by China, but then already followed by the European Patent Office. And then I think more interesting, the fourth place goes already to India. Yeah. So if you look at US, then there are more than 1,000 patents in relation to this cyber security buzzwords if you search for them. And of course,
There's also a company distribution. There's one leading company in China who holds the most patents. It's related to aviation and aerospace. I think this is not intriguing for you. It's not an astonishing thing. But there are also many cybersecurity patents related to engineering. Particularly Honeywell holds a very strong portfolio there, but also with related to the technology as such, cybersecurity as such. However, also to finance, there are also many cybersecurity patents related to finance and finance protection. I think that is something in a nutshell which could be interesting for you. And then, of course, the question is to which technology they are actually related. So what is the invention which they actually cover? And before we go to that, I would like to quickly explain you what it is all about, because a patent is a reward, as we said. It's an incentive which is granted to you for that you share your invention. And I think invention, we now mentioned also several times, it's also an unfilled buzzword for you. What is invention? An invention is a contribution which per se usually is technically, yes, another misbelief. There was a debate about whether software patents are technical or not. Please forget that and stop talking about it. Yeah, this is 20 years ago that there was a debate about whether a software patent can exist or not, whether it's technical enough. This is our skill as your patent attorneys in the end to argue for that still. But please, on the onset, first believe that your invention, software or not, is patentable. Okay, so forget about that. So I have made an invention. Is it patentable? Yes, if it is new and if it is based on an inventive step. These are the two fundamental hurdles which you have to take. Why? Yeah, because otherwise it's not a contribution. It's not part of the old Greek deal. Yeah, if you come as a cook to the colony the third time with the spaghetti, they will send you away. So you must make a contribution. And if you make this contribution, and this is part of the process, how to get the patent in the end, you are rewarded with these 20 years of being able to forbid others to practice your invention. The process is complicated. It's like making your tax declaration in Germany, probably, and therefore there are us who support you in this whole process. We do much more than that, but this is one of the core things which we do. Yeah, we write your invention in words which you rarely recognize as your invention in the end. That's the trick, probably. Part of the trick is that the inventors don't recognize what you actually invented when I'm done with their invention. I'm just kidding. And on the other hand side, however, it has to be written in a certain style. Yeah, it has to fulfill certain formal prerequisites. And then, however, you apply for a patent. How does this work? Yes, as usual. You have to pay for it. I mean, you have to pay the attorney who writes it, but you also have to pay the offices, and you file the patent in one of the offices. And usually you can go different ways already on the start. You can start with a French national patent or a German national patent or a US national patent, and you can go to every country separately, and you can apply, of course, with the same invention for the same patent if you file it on the same day. This is very unpractical. It already sounds weird to do that, right? There are different systems and there are different rules how to do that. And of course, at least in Europe, there's also a regional possibility to do that. So you go to the European office and by once you apply for a European patent, which in the end you can either distribute to different European countries, or you keep it as the new version, the unitary patent, which is then immediately effective in the countries which take part in the contract. Even further, there is an international patent application and search process. There is no international patent. But you can go via this route and also via the PCT, the Patent Cooperation Treaty, go nearly into every country centrally, and from there you go into the different countries or again in the European region. Sounds a bit complicated, but in the end it's a relatively well-structured process, and usually you get time to think about it and good counseling like this. Yeah? However, the patent is an examined right. There are others like the utility model, which I think exists in France, Germany, and some other countries, which are non-examined. You just file them and they exist until they are challenged by your competitor, right? The patent is an examined right. This means you have a debate. Yeah, you file your invention, and usually at a certain time point, the office searches for prior art and looks into the recipe book and says, hey, what do we actually already know? Is this really new, what Mark filed us in here? And then we confront him with the arguments. And this is the examination procedure, which can go 1, 2 rounds. It really depends on what they find in the search. And in cybersecurity at the moment, a lot of such prior art is revealed because there is a lot of filing going on. And sometimes the step to pass over this hurdle gets smaller and smaller, right? And like this, also the protection which you get. If you are working in a very active field, it's somehow logic, right? Then the merit, the contribution which you do to the society gets smaller, and thus also your right. If you are an explorer in a new field, you can get a much broader pattern. So that a bit about the process. You can memorize 3 to 5 years. This is the usual average duration which we currently need in order to get your patent granted, which means now I have the right. Before, I just have a patent application. I applied for the patent. I claimed something. And then after 3 to 5 years, the office says, now you get this patent because we have examined it, and now you are allowed to enforce it. That's the process how you get a patent. And if you look at the technologies which are particularly relevant for you, I think also this is somehow not very intriguing. There exists something about 2,500 patents which are basically covering denial of service attack protection. There is around 1,100 patents which are related to distributed denial of service attacks, and then there come other things like reply attack, around 600 patents in the world, and then going down to all of the different possibilities of technology. If you sort them by type of attack, it's quite interesting to see. And then if you look at the different big players, it gives us a very interesting picture, which is at DOS and DDoS attacks very much dominated by UI, for example. Yeah, UI is one of the biggest players here, but also IBM in DOS attacks is very prominent. So is Cisco, for example. I think these are some prominent names which you know and recognize and which are strong patent holders. One more in the tech field like UI, and then Cisco, for example, very much in the telecommunication. But you also find patents related to blockchain and cybersecurity or very classical security solutions. Yeah, and the question, well, is still, I mean, why should we have a patent then? Why? What does it cost actually to have a patent? And all of these questions probably we can address. In the end, you can calculate roughly that in the beginning, if you want to have a patent, you have to pay a person like me writing your patent, and this costs time. This is a very old service model which the attorneys still provide, and you have to think that you need to invest in the beginning something like 5,000–6,000 euros until you have a very well-written patent. This is a usual price, which is also more or less accepted. If you are a huge filer, of course, and you have a lot to offer, then the prices drop a bit. So industry prices are a bit lower. And if you want to have as a bullet point, for example, what a European patent costs, then you end up over its whole lifetime, I think, with something 15,000–18,000 euros, yeah, for the process. And then there is annuity fees where you as frequently have to pay the office in order to uphold the patent for you. This just as a bullet number. If you go internationally, it goes. It really depends on the number of coverage which you want to have, because of course, think of the colony. You can only enforce your patent in the colony where you pay for it, right? And if you want to have the whole world covered because you are a great inventor and you go to Christian and say, Christian, this is very important, we have to file it everywhere, then I unfortunately have to confront you with the reality and say everywhere costs every money you have, probably, right? US 17,000 euros, sorry, to enter the country and start the prosecution. China, Korea, roughly the same. And if you then go in total with a sum of 50,000 to 80,000 euro for a patent family, I think this is a relatively good average of figures which you need. Why should you do that? Hell, I could do something else with this money, right? This is what you're probably thinking now. And in the end, you may be right and you may be wrong, because in the end, it's also a business case in order to prohibit others from doing what you practice. And there are a lot of strategies in order to do that, right? And maybe here is a logic which we have to look into a bit. Why should you hinder others from doing something? This is a very negative attitude, right, friends? Yes. On the other hand side, it's the deal of the Greek colony. In order to incentivize that we make a rapid development, that we can develop such strategies, that we can protect our computer systems, in order to move forward fast, we need money also to develop. If we can market our products later, and for example, particularly in the field of software protection, earn money with licenses for the software, which provides us with a USP, we can use the patent in very different strategic ways. And one is the very classical way, which you are all aware of, that you say, I can prohibit others from doing my invention. This is granting me exclusivity. So I can have a bigger margin on my product because I'm investing in that. And therefore, I get reward with the patent, and therefore I can sell my product for more. And of course, if you look in other industries, as I said, pharma is a very nice, very different example compared to the software patenting field, because the pace is totally different, and the number of products, the pipeline which you have to feed is totally different. You know what I mean? How many projects fail in pharma? Depending on the company, but roughly 99%. They have to pay the whole development circle, the whole pipeline, with the 1% or less than 1% of products which ends up in the market, with a development time which is nearly sometimes 10, 20 years. And then with the rest of the patent lifespan, they have the exclusivity, because if you send the product to an Indian reverse engineer, within a week, 2, they will have the formulation and they can go into the market with the generics product. Wow. And in this business case, the 20 years are not even long enough. And the game totally changes if you look to software patenting, where we have market penetration. Sometimes if you look at apps, within weeks of more than 90%. Here, as I said, 20 years are nearly infinite. The strategic game changes. And exclusivity is then a very, very sharp sword. And you see that if the people come into battle, right? Particularly if it comes to standard essential patents, which probably in the software field are also a very interesting topic. What are these standard essential patents? Well, if I have owned a invention which I made, which is so essential that it's a standard, you cannot practice the standard without my patent. I basically are the rights owner for full exclusivity. I can forbid you to use 5G. Happy birthday. And of course, as usual, if such strong over, how should I say that? If such situations where each of us thinks, well, this cannot be, actually, what is he telling me? I cannot use a 5G. There are counter regulations then very fast found, particularly in the case law. And if you, particularly in the field of standard essential patents, there are regulations how you can get a license. Yeah, front. I don't want to go into this talk into deep, and there are specialists for that. I'm not a front specialist. Yeah, front means you get a license for reasonable and good conditions, and if you ask for them, they have to grant you a license, and then you can get access, but you have to pay for it, right? So, but if you look into these areas, then you see how patents are strategically used in the end to drive business cases, particularly also in such a rapidly development field like cybersecurity patents. And in a nutshell, I mean, there are many very particular solutions which are today found, like one famous patent of IBM nowadays, which was discussed and rewarded, where they, for example, track certain server navigations, and read out whether there is a fraud or not, and whether there is attack or not, and then shuts down the system. Of course, you can patent that. And of course, your company can profit from having such a patent, i.e., now I really repeat myself, the right to forbid. So that's a bit an insight, and I think there is one story which I want to share with you in the end, because it's also a buzzword which we hear very often. I don't want to let you go without having heard of it. It's the famous patent trolls. Trolls, like in Lord of the Rings of Tolkien. Yes, exactly. And there is a more gentle word for them, which is the so-called non-producing entities. And this a bit discloses what the business model of these people is. They are not producing. It's a difference if I'm IBM and if I'm selling products, and if I'm in a battlefield of competition. So my market is that I have competitors. I have patents, he has patents. Sometimes he needs me, I need him. And this is where you usually find good possibilities to also make a cross-license deal, right? So if I have a patent which you need and you have a patent which I need, then it's better to talk. And this happens very often. And sometimes, of course, the things go in front of the court and you have to decide on the hard way. But very often also the companies negotiate and settle, and they can work with each other and coexist and find ways to compensate who has the better right, who has more rights than the other party. And then there are these which don't produce. And they have a business model which I just want to share at the end as a gimmick, as I said, the patent trolls. They look around and they look which patents are interesting, which I can buy. And I have no interest in protecting my invention. I'm just buying the right. And I'm looking for the people which need this right. And then I go after them and say, either you pay or I sue you. This is the classical business model of a patent troll. And this, I think, in the last years caused a lot of trouble, and also in Germany, a lot of discussion about how to change, for example, the patent law in order to make this business model a bit less prominent. Well, we cannot go into everything, but looking on the time mark, I think it's fine as a first show. And of course, I mean, if you have questions, I'm really happy to look into this. I hope I could entertain you a bit with this very interesting field, which I fell in love with many years ago. I think patents is a super interesting area. It's in the end a business tool. It's in the end a tool which drives also innovation. This is what I really believe. And it's something which I think it's worth to spend time with, because also to have an invention found, which in the end you want to patent and make the process at least once, this is very exciting. Well, thank you for listening and joining me today. And as I said, I'm very happy if you have some questions and more interest in this field. Mark, I don't hear you.
Okay. So now you should hear me. Good. So yeah, thank you very much, Christian. It was super exciting and super interesting talk. I don't know if you followed the questions already. We have lots of questions that are in the chat. So maybe let's start with what you said last, which is your personal journey. So you started studying in the biology direction, then afterwards you did your PhD in that direction, then you went to pharma, and then afterwards you went to this patenting thing. And could you explain a bit how your mind shifted? Because for me, for instance, it's not the obvious development path. At the same time, all the patent attorneys that I know some, all they are some kind of Quereinsteiger in the sense that they have expertise from their field, from a field where they did something, and then they went to patent attorney.
Yeah, and this is a question I'm very often confronted with, because there is a very strong belief still that you really need a tech expert for addressing tech questions. And in some areas, this might be absolutely true. And for example, in my law firm, we also have different patent attorneys with different technical backgrounds, like physicists, like people which work since years in the medical device field, with people which have a biochemistry background, etc. When I started, I really believed it must be like this, and you have to be a technical expert. And then by a lot of struggles in my life also, which I can retrospectively say was a big luck, I was confronted with a lot of other technologies, and I broadened my spectrum very much. So the problem with being very specialized is that you also are only a specialist, right? And you have not seen much left and right side. There are these cases where I would absolutely recommend you need a highly skilled specialist, technically skilled specialist. But there are, in this field of patents, there are a lot of other layers of specialty which you probably need. And I, for example, I discovered a lot of knowledge also with regard to strategic areas and strategic topics, particularly about how to use and compose portfolios in a strategic way. And there, the skill with regard to patent practice and patent portfolio or patent management is much, much more important than the particular technical expertise. Then you might have a case where you really go to court and where you really litigate a case in front of different courts in the different jurisdictions. And I would tell you, it's not so important that you have the technical expertise, rather than that you have somebody who's really skilled in litigation, i.e. in court actions, and knows every particular move which you can make in front of a court, and also the psychology about how to work with the court in front of you, etc. So I think you will never find all in one, although many people and many companies make you believe that this is the case. For my own expertise, I would say there were rare cases where I really discovered that I need an expert, and where I actually tell my clients, please, I will find you the best patent attorney for this particular topic, but I cannot deal with it. Usually it's more that with the breadth of what you have seen, and with all of the different skills which I have seen from household appliances via pharma companies, etc., pp, that this blend makes a much, much broader toolkit which I can use for my clients. But this is, I would say, it's different schools of belief also, because you can find colleagues which exactly will tell you the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, very good. Related to that, so in this path of patenting something, which are the entities that are involved? So, and also, when do I get in touch with you, for instance? So let's assume I have something I want to patent, and so here is my thing. And so when do I contact you? Do I contact you early on in my invention process, so to shape it with you? Or do I contact you when I think it's okay? And then what are the steps? What is happening? And the reason why I ask is, like, for researchers like me, it's still kind of a black box. It's like, oh yeah, this could be patented. And then also from prior employees, I know that the process indeed was as you described it. You give something like a text where it's a description that is understandable for you. Then you get something back where you think, like, okay, this is so generalized that it could be everything and nothing. But if this patent attorney thinks it's better, let's go with that. And I still find myself a bit. And so maybe can you share a bit something about that?
Yeah. And honestly, Mark, this is one of the most difficult questions if we really deep dive into it. There is a very simple answer to it. However, if we go by general ways, and this is as early as possible, you confront your patent attorney, because there is a risk of losing everything. And this is particularly in your field of scientists at a university. You are eager to publish, you want to share it. And I told you today, the moment where you share it, it's not new. You come with an old recipe, because I tell you, you are the one who showed us how it works. Why should we reward you? Why should we reward you thereafter? So this is a very fundamental and strict logic. Don't disclose before you have filed the patent or made your decision that you don't. So This is the general, very simple answer. However, you drove already into deep here, because you said, when is the right time to bring my invention actually to file? And this is really, really, really difficult to answer, right? If you have a company where the patent attorneys are allowed to involve into the innovation management, where they even are contributing to the idea creation because they know what your competitors are filing, etc., it's much, much easier to know when exactly, in which breath you can get a patent. Yeah. Sometimes, if you are very early in your development, if you are a torchbearer, if you are a first mover, yeah, you can get a broader claim when you file early. And sometimes in a second or third wave of innovation, for example, also it's the smaller contributions which matter. And particularly if you work strategically with portfolios, it's really good to have patents in different phases of the innovation cycle. However, of course, and particularly again, we can learn from pharma, the deal breaks if you are not able to cook with the recipe which you provided. So in other words, the maturity of your invention must be as good that you contribute with something meaningful. Yeah, which means, and this is one rule which we have at least in Europe, somebody who's reading your patent must be also enabled to practice the invention. If you just come with blur and every question which I ask you, you answer with, well, we actually don't know and probably doesn't work, etc., we can have a try. But the success rate is lower than if you come with something substantial, of course.
And I just profit from having you, therefore I dig a little bit deeper in. So
yes, you know my hourly rate, man.
Yeah, this is why I take. So there's like there are patents. When I sometimes read patents, and they are like, the thing they apparently wanted to patent is they have a specific. I mean, this software now, but let's not go into the focus if this software part is patentable. But it's rather, I have an interface, and on this interface there's a button. And then this is a specific button, and you click it in order to get some French fries or something like that. And so it looks like the person who wanted to patent specified that and send it. And then the patent attorney put the patent into, whenever you have a page where there's a button and somebody clicks, then it should be protected. Isn't that contradicting what you were just describing, that it should be specific but also general?
Cool question, and no. But this is really, really difficult to explore, because many years I counseled research and development, and they always came to me and say, hey, the others are always getting these broad claims, and why are we so specific and have to disclose everything? And the story is that you have to think about the abstraction level. Is you have something very substantial and very specific, and then you and we explore from that starting point, what else, what are the possibilities, how could you differently do that, etc., to abstract it. And then you get a relatively abstract claim. For example, if you have, and I make a very standard, stupid, simple example, sorry, it's a bit disgusting, yeah. If you found that you can take a nail in order to hang a painting onto your wall, then the question is, what else could do the job? Right, a screw. So if you patent the nail, because this is the specific thing, and somebody else does a screw, he's out of your patent. If we talk with each other, and you say, well, probably it's a nail or it's a screw, and with a screw we could also do something else, then maybe we can come to a functional conclusion and can say, well, both is a fastening means, a means for fastening something to a wall. And if I claim a fastening means, and you look at it as a technical expert, you say, well, these patent guys are crazy. But actually, I did my job well, because I took your specific example, I discussed different alternatives, and then I abstracted it to a abstract but equally applicable knowledge. And this is what we actually contributed to, right? We have shown we can hang the painting onto the wall, and we have a fastening, and this is our solution. If nothing else existed before, this is probably something which will be a patent rewarded. If you come just with what we call a desideratum, so wishful thinking, and say, well, Christian, I have a solution. Say, Mark, what is it? And you say, I want to hang my painting on the wall. And say, well, how? And you say, I don't know. Then we will never, ever get a patent.
Mhm. Okay,
Clear?
so it makes it a bit more clear.
Roughly.
No, it's still a bit vague for me, but it's fine. I mean, I'm already used to that. It's quite difficult to, or even not even difficult, but impossible to pinpoint down, because it's just a very different ways of thinking on it. So that means for you, this in the meantime totally logic that it's, as you say. For me, it makes sense what you said, but it's still very abstract. Okay, but no problem. So the related to that, so how would I decide where I want to file my patent? What would I do? So, and this implies both countries, but also which people do I contact? Which are my options? Whom can I contact if I want to file a patent? No, I hear you. Okay, perfect, good. So yeah, it somehow broke. So, but let's just continue. So the question that I told you, I don't know if you heard it, was thanks a lot for the answer. It clarified my understanding more. At the same time, it still remains a bit foggy, but I think this is inherent to the process, because your point of seeing the things is just different from the engineering point of view, because you have other contexts in mind. And so
usually not, Mark. Usually not, because I mean, what we usually try to achieve was that we are deeply involved in innovation management. And when back in times, I have educated the whole team to make an innovation management education. The problem which we have found is that more the outside, so innovation managers had a rough and very, very small understanding of patent and patent processes, and also the contribution which we usually make. And I think it all starts with a very well understanding of about the first of all strategical onset of what you actually want to achieve with the patents and what is your patent strategy. But then also it translates, however, into the overarching business strategy. Yeah. So the business strategy comes first, and you have to integrate your understanding of what you want to do with the patent strategically. So, and the business strategy basically defines also what you want to develop, where is your technical focus. And usually you are not alone there. Yeah. I mean, in startup, you really talk a lot about the USP, etc. Yeah. And this has very much to do also about whether you really want to achieve exclusivity or not. But in an established corporate, you usually are in fierce competition. So you are not alone. And usually it says development. It says not start fresh. Usually there is something which exists already. And also another truism, you don't know everything. However, in patents, you need clear rules, and therefore it's always assumed that you should have known everything. So a good patent search will cover a good portion of this. Now you have to estimate how good is my contribution. And this will depend on whether you will make the jump and you will get your patent or not. So, and for knowing that, for in order to know that, you also have to know and figure out how mature must be my contribution. If the nail and the already exists and you develop the screw, then you have to think much, much more about what is the difference and what are the commonalities. And you have to be much more detailed about the differences. If you, however, are the first who just invents something, then most probably the maturity degree can be much, much lower. And during this process where we develop together, we really have to think about that. We have to look at different competitor patents of the prior art, and we really have to together understand, is it mature enough, and what is the breadth which we really can claim or not. So therefore, it's going interlinked with each other. And this is the sad part of the story. I see many companies or university processes where these two things are totally disconnected.
Okay, and this is also my point of view actually, that from inside an innovative research center. Who are the entities involved now if I want to do the patenting?
Thanks.
So I get in contact with you, and whom do you contact, and also which are the money flows that are involved? So if I pay the 18,000, is it you that takes it and you pay the fuel of your Ferrari with it, or do you have
exactly
to
like
pay
that.
fees? And
It's exactly like that.
This is what I thought. Okay,
That was probably my belief when I decided for this profession, but reality is much harder. No, there are many people involved in the end and many entities involved, but in the most simple system, there are 3 entities. Probably we can even say 2, because there are patent systems where you do not necessarily need a patent attorney. Right? And in former days, like when Einstein was still an examiner at the German Patent Office, it was enough to go with your invention to the patent office and say, look, that's what I invented. Can I get a patent for it? So 2 entities were involved, you as the inventor and secondly, the patent office. And in some areas, it can be like this. I mean, very simple trademark filings can already be done by the inventors, right? A trademark is something else. We will not touch it today. But in this area or in some simple areas, you do not even need a patent attorney. But it's a bit like making your taxes without a tax professional, right? So, and if you ask for consulting, then the third party, which is the patent attorney, comes into play. So we talk first, you as the inventor and me. And then we go to the office and we apply to the patent, and I secure that you are guided through the process. And then the cash flow is you pay and I will pay the office for you. So the cash flow is from you to me, from me to the office. And we usually at TWIP, we are very transparent to that. You always know what you pay for and for what. So, and you can make this thing very complicated because, for example, you said I'm in a university institution. So usually I do not exactly know the right in France, but usually the university as your employer is a fourth party which can be into play. Yeah, and there are rights about what you have to do, etc. So I would believe that an employee cannot just run to a patent attorney in France and say, hey, I have a patent, please don't tell my employer. Yeah, so. And in Germany, there is even a law about that, which is the employer's inventors law, where we also say we want to incentivize that employers contribute, which means the Germans, for example, regulate that a German employee who makes an invention will get a part of the contribution. So there could be financial aspects in that you would have stakeholders, etc., which with venture capital support you in your company. There could be several attorneys in different countries involved, other offices, and you can make this game as complex as you like. Yeah, because at a certain time point, you may wish to have a patent in US, which means there is a US patent attorney who deals with the US PTO, the US Patent Office in US. And usually, your local patent attorney, i.e. in this case then me, I would take over the whole correspondence and secure that you will get your patent via my US colleague in US and vice versa.
Okay, very good. So where do I access patents the best? So is there a database that is open? There's Google Patents, for instance. So what would you recommend if I think I might have something to be patented? Cool. And I want to do a first look without having the expertise, but just have a first look. Could this be a patent? Where would you do it?
Yeah, and it's great that you also mentioned Google Patents, and you are the professor for cybersecurity. So I would re-address this question to you and say, would you wish that your inventors enter sensitive data about the new cybersecurity features, which they are currently developing on, into Google Patents, where we all know that Google is tracking all of this and basically getting knowledge of that? So we in the company usually have strictly forbidden that and said, no, please don't use Google Patents. We might trust Google. I don't say you shouldn't trust Google. I just say that you put your sensitive data, your secrets, your crown jewels into a browser which you don't control and where you don't have good contracts with as a standard with the other side. So what is the source you should use? And there are several possibilities. Usually, and if you want, I mean, we can also share with the community some links later on, yeah, where we either have the publishing services of the patent offices. Yeah, you can have, because this is part, again, I always come back to the deal. The state secures that you have access to these patents. It's not like science publications, which the state provides you the money for, then you publish, and then you have to pay to read them. No. So there are official sources which the offices, so the official entities, grant you access to the literature. And honestly, for you guys affine to software, it's easy to use. You work usually also in these searches, which I've done to prepare for this meeting, with Boolean algebra. Yeah, country, not China, because I can't read them. Plus buzzword cyber asterisk plus security, 3 words distance. Something like this, and then you will get a search result, for example. So this is the one source. And then, of course, as usual, there are professional search providers which provide you with, which usually browser-based access to databases which are easier to use, where you can really make good landscape analysis. This is what we usually use as professionals. Of course, we have one well-selected professional search tool. And then again, you are in a contract situation, because I buy the license, and with the license, I of course have a contract with the search provider so that my information is locked. Very similar discussion, by the way, to with regard to the use of artificial intelligence and large language models, right? The big concern is that what you put in is not kept confidential. If you can secure that, fine. If you secure it by contract, that's the best solution I know.
Okay. But that means basically everything that is, so not basically, so everything that is patented at the German Patent Office, I can access through their service.
Yes.
And do they also provide me access to European patents that are relevant for me? So that means if I'm in Germany and I want to protect something for my relevant markets, do I get access to that?
Yeah, to some extent, yes. It really depends on which database you use. And here you need to be a bit, you need to invest a bit to understand where to search for what. Yeah, if this is a European patent which is enforced in Germany, you usually find it from the German perspective. The German Patent Office collaborates with the European Patent Office. The European Patent Office offers its own search engine. The International Patent Office also offers its own search engine. You can search also at the USPTO, etc. pp. In the end, it's probably an interesting way of starting a project also in a university to say, well, we take these, I would say probably €500 and invest in a well-made search where we contract with a searcher who has access to such databases and provides you with a really good landscape. After having done my PhD, I really thought very often about why the hell I have never done this, right? Because one also believes that roughly 90% of the knowledge is documented in patents in the world. Yeah, this is much, much more compared to science literature. In the end, both is equally important. So a good scientist knows his literature, has done a search in the literature. Why the hell has he never searched patents? So that could be an interesting outcome also. If you look at your field, you probably should start to read patents as a source of knowledge to know what the companies are currently doing in your domain. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Then I just look at the time. So the
how much time do we have left, Mark?
About 10, 15 minutes. So you brought up already large language models, generative AI. From the point of view, if you put something, is it protected? So if you don't have a contract with them, it's not protected. Even recently there was a news that GitHub repositories that were just visible for a microsecond were also indexed.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, of course, it's relevant whom do I share my knowledge with. But from the other perspective, you could also use LLMs and generative AI in order to generate patents. So
Absolutely.
thinking again about these patent trolls in the advanced sense, so they could even become creators without ever having any products by applying such a thing. Is that already a thing? Is that something where you think, oh, this is dangerous, we will be flooded with bullshit patents, or not bullshit patents, but generated patents that will try to cover the entire invention space, and they are fully automated, and this is even a revenue model? Is that an attack thing? Is it a thing?
I really have to think about that, because I have thousands of answers to that, and they are really diverge. Let's put it into some slices. There is a lot of in there. Yes, you can patent or you can reveal innovation and inventions with large language models. This has been proven, and I have recently demonstrated even live on stage that it's somehow possible to do it even without much skill, without particular softwares. But there are also professional softwares for that, and there are also companies which are offering AI-driven innovation. This is possible, yes. And of course, then you can patent them. You can also write the patent nowadays by using large language models. This is probably also a challenge for my profession in the future. However, we also see that the strategic knowledge, the skill of which I was talking for, at the moment, I say at the moment, but at the moment is never ever reached, which you usually as a patent attorney are able to. Because it's not really creative. It's hallucinating, but it's not creative. It can only do what it has learned before. So the more standard your case, the more it is possible. The more skill you need from a human side, the less a large language model is possibly replacing you. And I don't think we talk about replacement. I think we talk about enhancement, and about that the patent attorney using AI tomorrow is the better patent attorney, but the patent attorney without AI will fail as much as the AI without the patent attorney. And now you can discuss who of the two latter will fail more, the patent attorney without AI or the AI without the patent attorney. So, okay, so this is what I believe. So is this, however, a threat? Well, if you look at the patent landscape today and some data I shared, the majority of patents is created still, thankfully, from active R&D. So there are people which are developing, and then you have the sufficient knowledge to targetedly develop solutions which are substantial and real, and which you can put on file. They have a certain quality. And I don't want to believe that they are just wiped out and that you can replace all R&D in the world by just prompting. Again, I think the combination of both will make a difference. An R&D engineer which is using AI is better than an AI without R&D, and an AI plus R&D is better. You got it. So since years, we are seeing that there are a lot of patents created in China and originating from China. They are profiting also from a state incentive system. So you're incentivized for filing patents, and the numbers go higher and higher and higher. The problem here is that you cannot see the one who's valuable within the tree and forest of shit. Sorry to be that frank and clear. The most patents we've seen from China still don't have the R&D quality within. And still there is an increasing quality also coming from substantial innovation from China. I think the question, therefore, Mark, is a political one. Yeah, and I have done that I've posted a LinkedIn post some months ago where I really tried to raise that question. And this is really, do we believe in this system that the Greek colony is still the right thing? Yeah, that we let compete the companies with their R&D, and then we reward them with the right to forbid, versus a system where we incentivize just the filing and where we protect our R&D and our market with other borders, like with tariffs and etc. And I think this is something which we need a lot of beer and a lot of other stakeholders to discuss with. In the end, the rare cases where you really have a conflict show you which patent is substantial and which has the real value. And this is still, from this vast number of patents, the minority. The problem is that you get less certainty in it, and that you don't oversee the whole landscape any longer because it's so dramatically overwhelmed by patents. And it's very similar, like if a scientist in a new field starts to explore the literature, you cannot distinguish the goods from the bad. And that is an issue. And I believe, yes, that this issue now becomes more prominent because the filing numbers may increase because it's easier to get a patent independent from its quality. And on the other side, we have a countermeasure because also from the search side, there are already a lot of solutions which use AI, and with AI, the search for the goods is getting much, much better. And probably in the end, it's kind of a counterbalance.
Okay, very good. And also the most interesting to me is that you really did let us participate a bit in your thought process, because this is I always find very interesting because you bring so much.
I'm not bringing you all the answers. Probably I'm sometimes bringing more questions. Also, this lies in our profession.
Yeah, but this is perfect. I mean, you did not say it depends so far. So
right. Then I have to pay €5. This is what Mark said before, right? When we discussed it, because the natural patent attorney always says, "Well, it depends."
Exactly.
And we said, if I do, now I did it once, so one beer is first.
So you mentioned already China, and there might also be other players. But with China, I heard that while they might use patenting to secure their intellectual property in the rest of the world, they themselves seem not to care too much about patents, at least for the internal market, saying like, okay, if it's patented somewhere else, we don't care, even if it's global patents or if that exists.
Mark, where are you leading me to? Well, yes.
And so my question is not a political one. It's rather, let's name it a country X that is not playing after the rules. Is that a fundamental problem for the system, or would you say it doesn't really matter because in the end it's rather national protection, and therefore what they do in their market is their own thing?
Nothing to add.
Yeah.
Nothing to add. What I can share is probably something which is not related directly to this question, but the German Patent Office has collaborated with China very early, and the Chinese patent system as such was built with the help of Germany and is very, very similar to the German patent system. Now it's more a mixture also with some things which you also find in the US. So in a nutshell, China usually actually has a very well thought patent system. Not because it's made in Germany originally. This is not what I say. It says it was taking the best out of all the things. But everything else, what you said, yes, it's true.
Okay, good. I'm fine with my answer. So another question that is interesting to me. So you said the patents are 20 years. Are they renewable?
This is the full lifespan. You have to renew them every year. After 3 years it starts, until they reach 20. And there are really, really nearly no exceptions to this rule. The exceptions exist in the pharma, where you can get a special certificate in order to get a bit of prolongation here. But in your domain, it's 20 years from the filing date, full stop.
Okay, interesting. And so my question is, why is it so different from the duration with the Urheberrecht, which is 70 years, I guess?
Sure.
And
I think, honestly, I don't know. In the intellectual property, there is another right which is going unlimited, which is the trademark. So a trademark has to be prolonged every year. It also has to be used in order to exist. But in general, a trademark goes infinite. So how the lifespans were historically defined, I don't know. And I could really well question whether this is still up to date. And I think I have revealed the reasons for that. It's really industry and life cycle dependent on whether 20 years is a lot or too less. And honestly, I would argue for a more adaptable patent system where you could say, well, in a very rapid technology, particularly computer science or cyber security, for example, 20 years is far too much. Because if you get real a substantial right, then it's until ever. While in pharma, one could very well argue that if we really want to have good drugs in the future, if we really want to have personalized medicine, then we need to enable the companies to profit more from the exclusivity if they develop nearly 15, 20 years.
Okay. And when I now have something I want to patent, how would I decide where to patent it? So probably based on my business model. So if I want to go for Europe, if I want to go for Germany, so this would be the
it's the business model, and it's also the question of where you market it. And if you then are a bit more flexible in it, and flexible means, of course, here, it is also, for example, in the strategic games, a question: where does market your competitors? This is usually your market as well. Where are future markets? And then, however, where is the manufacturing point for your competitors? So, for example, if I have no market in India, but my competitor is manufacturing in India, and I can forbid him there, then he has to stop production, for example. And such considerations are relevant. If you now coming to me as a sole inventor, I would ask you, why are you patenting? And then we would explore together the strategy where you should patent, right? And it really depends on your business model. For example, if you say, I'm working with venture capital, my idea is to exit, then we would ask, well, whom would you sell the company, and where do they actually have interest in, right? Because you cannot offer your patent to a company which has a strong market in China, and then you say, well, China, I didn't afford, I was too poor. Then they will lose interest in a second. And these are the considerations, basically.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So if now I have my patent, who takes care if this patent is getting violated? So are you taking care? Is the patent office taking care? Do I have to take care and then pay another lawyer in order to
Good
sue
question.
them?
Yeah, thank you for that, because this is one which is intriguing. There are so many patents filed, and then the question is, why the hell are you doing that? And if it's really your strategy to protect your invention with this, i.e., you want one day to enforce it, wow, that's the issue. No, usually the standard patent attorney work is not to monitor if there is a infringement. We are sometimes in some projects doing that. We are also doing infringement huntings. For example, also bigger companies are doing that. So when I was heading the patent department, I have frequently asked the whole company to look for patent infringements and to identify competitors who are not respecting our first party rights. We have done test buyings, and particularly bigger companies are doing that frequently, that they do test buyings and tear down then the solutions of the competitor, really to monitor, is there. So friend of mine is, for example, one who has a lot to do with counterfeit products. So they are swapping over from China, are marketed in Amazon, and one of the issues is to keep them away from the marketplace there. So this is an awareness which usually the patent owner himself organizes. And then, of course, you need sometimes the help of a lawyer, or you have the in-house capacity. So if you find an infringement of your own patent, then you usually would come to me and say, Christian, I found him. What do we do about it? And then we have to, again, explore, is it worth to go after him? Can you afford it? What are the right tactics? Because maybe it's also as an onset for a good negotiation to make, in the end, money out of your patent, because obviously he's using it. So you can stop him, or you can ask him to pay for it. Could be interesting. So these are the things. And then, of course, it depends on the jurisdiction, because I'm a German and European patent attorney, but I cannot enforce your right in China. So we need a Chinese colleague in order to do that, for example. Yeah. And that is where it becomes really expensive. Because we have to organize a global litigation sometimes. And that is then an issue where you really have to know, this is a yearly process, many years of processes in front of courts in order to get your right really through. But if the stakes are high, it's worth for it, to go for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so very, very interesting. Could we quickly go back to statistics? So why are pharmaceutical companies patenting so much? Which are the most active fields from your experience? So which parts of research and development are really patent driven? So do you have a chart for that? Is pharma the biggest?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't need the chart. It's just enough if you tell me, yeah, pharma is important because of this and that. It's their business model is intrinsically linked to patent. Like that.
It's not necessarily pharma. So there is a yearly review, for example, of the European Patent Office, where they show which companies in which top technology fields patenting is done. And usually it's not dominated by pharma. Usually it's dominated by digital communication still, and it's also dominated by medical technology. So the whole computer science, digital communication is by vast majority the biggest filers. And if you then look, second best is medical technology still. So pharma is not necessarily there. Pharma companies patent, and very often their business strategy is very much dependent on patent strategy. And the reasons I have given during this conversation, I think at least twice. Mm-hmm. If you have only a short lifespan of patent time to get all of the invest back, because the race about generics, about copying is so high, and you can so fastly reverse engineer the invention which you have developed over years, the patent is very valuable. And this is why the business strategy in pharma is very much dependent on the patent strategy. While, for example, however, if you have a very fast app within, I would say, well, 2 weeks, you have a market penetration of more than 90%, yeah, and you make the money within 1 or 2 years, you can have several copycats. In the end, you made your money. But still, digital communication patents, computer technology patents, they are where the patents are filed most. If you then particularly look to the countries, it could be a bit different. So at the German Patent Office, for example, it's still car industry, automotive industry, and Bosch, who are the biggest filers. I don't know now France, but also here it really depends who has which country strategy. And if you then look in the European Patent Office figures, it's again UI who's leading that. So foreign companies. However, also the Koreans are very strong. Of course, these pairs, yeah, computer and communication technology pairs with a strong filing of Samsung and LG and Huawei, and computer technology pairs strongly, for example, with Qualcomm being a strong filer, and then Ericsson comes as well. So also telecom is very strong. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Maybe 2 more questions. So let me check which one I take. Yeah, maybe let's stick with the patent language. So why is the patent language so complicated, or would you even say that it's complicated?
It's not complicated. It's just another language. I would say French is more complicated than patent language.
Okay,
but I want to give a serious question. No, yes, and I think I partially addressed it already. It's a legal document. It's not science. Yeah, it's not where you. I mean, okay, sometimes it's cool to sell the story also and say, hey, this is why this innovation is important, etc. And we sometimes try to do that in the patent document. But the first and the most important purpose of this document is that in the court action, I protect your invention. Every word counts. And this makes them not very easy to read for somebody who's not an IP practitioner. And as I said, sometimes the discrepancy is that you say, Christian, what have you done with my invention? And I can only say, well, I tried to protect it as good as I can, but with legal language. And of course, and this is one thing which we try to do at TWIP, we try to keep the gist of your invention so prominent that you really understand what we have done there. But I make you a simple example, which is out of the textbooks. Everybody can do it. It's not skill. There is a difference between saying that something consists of or something that comprises. And some call us nerds, like the little children which were playing computers in the basement of our school. Yeah, but this is the game. What is the difference? If I have a car which consists of 4 wheels versus a car which comprises 4 wheels, the difference is that comprises is understood by case law as open language, which means the list is open. A car which comprises 4 wheels can have a steering wheel, can have a roof, can have an engine, can have many, many other things like seats. While consisting of is a fully comprehensive closed list, which means a car consisting of 4 wheels actually doesn't exist. It doesn't even have a roof. It doesn't even have an engine. And if you have to think about such particularities, I think it's very obvious that sometimes a patent language is somehow sounding weird. And thanks, yes, I read I don't know who has placed the question, of course, but I read your mind. Yes, we are nerds. But we are paid for that in order to secure your invention in the best way. And it must survive in the end, the court action. That's the purpose, not that you fully understand it. Yes, sorry, not the most satisfying answer, probably.
No, it's a satisfying answer, because in the end, it's a perfect answer, because it's like, for many people who are joining today, I would say this patenting business is still a kind of a black or gray box. And so therefore, you're the voice from inside now for those outside. So therefore, it's a very good and valid answer. And a personal discussion with a beer later could be like, how did it change your mind having to think in those directions? And it's really a serious question, because as a scientist, you have also been in that position. You are also trained to be concise and precise in your expression and so on. But this is not the last question I want to ask. The last question I want to ask, a famous guy who is very questioned these days for good reasons, said patents are for the weak. What would you say to that?
There is probably a difference what I say here or what I would say personally to him. You have to look into the details, because I think if I'm informed well, then actually his policy, IP policy, also clearly says we don't sue you as long as you don't sue me, right? So in a nutshell, so which means it's a lie, because of course, if you look into the different fields, I mean, you can look how many patents Tesla owns. There are. So it's by no means that there are no patents, right? I think there is hidden another story within this saying, and this is something which, of course, is now paired with attitude. And I want not to talk about attitude. I want to talk about patent strategy. If you constantly and consequently invest in R&D, if you are torch-bearing the innovation, if you are the first mover, and this is without dispute, then you don't need patents, because you leave them all behind. And as long as they copy you, you are already 2 steps ahead. If this is your consequent strategy, and this is hard to keep maybe, but this is a strategy which you can follow as a fast mover, then you don't have to invest so much in securing that you don't infringe patents of others. And you don't have to invest to protect your invention, because you're always 2 or 3 steps ahead. It's also a dangerous strategy. But in this particular case, Mark, I mean, he has torchbeard. Tesla has torchbeard electromobility. He can enter a fierce competitive market like Germany, build there an infrastructure. And the good question is why? And why the hell has the European car industry, it doesn't matter whether it's now Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Audi, or whether it's Renault, why do they not have a single patent which they enforce against Tesla and fight him down? Probably they have, but probably the balance is different. And on the other hand side, they were well prepared with their fierce competition, and they have missed to make the innovation in place in the end, the patent portfolios where they needed to prevent Musk to enter the German and European market. And that's a strategic failure.
And I also think that this is also one of the take-homes from today. It's really patents and business model go totally hand in hand. And this is already protected by the money because it costs so much money to do it.
Exactly.
Because I was just once again reading about that many of the early Tesla engineers came from Mercedes-Benz in Ulm. Because Mercedes decided not to follow that path. And then they said like, okay, we are ahead of the research there, but nobody will buy it. We don't care. So people go. And
If
then
this is true, I don't know this story, but if this is true, I mean, you missed one thing, I think, which we should name in this. For me, it's a triad. It's business, it's strategy, patent strategy, business strategy, and then, however, innovation strategy.
Of course.
So the business is dominating and giving the direction. If you don't innovate in the right area where it matters tomorrow because you have misread the market or for whatever reasons you didn't do that, then others will conquer the spot.
Yeah, of course. The reason why I didn't name it is that I'm in innovation. For me, this is always the most that I am.
But this is the three which I think are important to mention, because I think a good business model can live totally without patents and without research and development. And I always name, for example, my I don't know, take the washing or take your car garage next door. They don't have a patent. They don't have R&D. They do a really solid business without it.
Very good. So super great. So thank you so much, because
Thank you.
I got lots of insights, and I think the audience also got. So thank you very much for being with us today and sharing so many super interesting insights.
It was great to be here. Thank you, Mark. Thank you all for listening.
So for the next edition will be on the 25th of April, and it will be the landscape of video deepfakes. And our speaker will Mohamed Zubair from Canadian Institute for Cybersecurity. And with that, I leave you to the outro, and stay safe, and connect the 25th of April. See you. Bye-bye.
Cher CyberCNI, pôle d'excellence région Bretagne. Au revoir et à la prochaine.